everybody, this is Marissa from the Duxbury Free Library. I am by myself, so I'm going to take my mask off so you can hear me better. So here at the library, if we're in a closed space with the door closed, we can take our masks off, but if we're out in the general area, we're all wearing our masks, so that's why I took mine off, because I'm here by myself filming Crafternoon for you. So this, first of all, I can't believe it's already October, and autumn is my favorite season. So this Take and Make Crafternoon project is a watercolor autumn wreath. And it's great because you can hang it up now and leave it up till all the leaves fall off the trees, and then you can save it and hang it up again next year when it's autumn again. So if you registered for this program, you got a kit with the supplies you need, and then a list of a couple things that you need to have at home. And so I'm going to go through that. If you didn't register for this project, I pre-cut the leaf shapes for this, but you could always find a leaf shape and trace it, or you could actually make this wreath with real leaves while they're still pretty vibrant. So I'm going to go through your supply list right here, and then we're going to put it together. So let's go through a Take and Make Crafternoon supplies. So I put in your kit 20 leaves cut from watercolor paper. Watercolor paper is heavier and it's designed to stand up to a lot of water, and it tends to have a cool texture. Some watercolor paper is rougher than other paper, but this it has a little texture. It's just the way it's made. So you have in your kit 10 of this leaf, 10 of this leaf, and then in your kit you also have a paper plate, which is gonna end up being your wreath form, and a piece of orange yarn. So you're just gonna fold this around. When you're done, you're gonna fold this around your wreath and just tie a little knot here at the top. At home, you will need watercolor paint and a brush. If you don't have watercolor paint, you can do this with thinned out tempera paint or any kind of paint. You don't have to paint in watercolor. It just makes a cool effect. And you'll need water for your watercolor, and also to rinse out your brush. You'll need a pair of scissors, and you'll need some glue. For my demonstration, I'm going to use a hot glue gun just because it'll dry faster. So it's just for the purposes of making this video, but regular white glue, school glue, will work just fine. It's just going to take a little longer to dry. I wouldn't recommend using a glue stick because this is heavier paper, so you need something that's a little bit stronger that will hold your leaves on your wreath. So now that we've gone through your supplies, I am going to show you how this project is going to be put together. So as you can see, I've already watercolored most of my leaves. I have two that I left because I want to show you how it looks when you're painting with watercolor. And I gave you 20 in your kit, but you probably won't need all of them. So you have a couple extra if you don't like how some of them turn out. But I did autumn colors. You can do any colors. Just because it's an autumn leaf project doesn't mean you couldn't have like purple leaves or pink leaves or blue leaves. But I just wanted to stay with the autumn theme. So these are the ones I prepped for this project, and I'm just gonna paint two more. So I'm just gonna set this pile off to the side. And I've got a little paper down to cover my work surface because this is a wet project. Watercolor washes out pretty decently, but it can get kind of soppy in the process, a little wet. So I just have a little tin here of watercolors. You can get these at, I believe you can get them out the drugstore, or you can order them online. They're pretty easy to get your hands on. And this is just like a kid set of watercolors. You don't need to buy the super fancy watercolor paint unless you want to. So you can see I've already used some of mine, and it's called watercolor because it's a very wet way of painting. So I'm gonna do this leaf first. And I've got a little cup, and I'm just gonna pour a little water in it. It's plain old water. It's from my water bottle. And I'm gonna set that up in the corner. And this set comes with a brush, most do. I like this brush better just because it's bigger, so it'll paint my leaf faster. And I also, you don't need one of these, but I have this little spritzy bottle full of water. And if you don't have one of these, I would recommend having a separate cup of clean water that you use to wet your paper first, because that's going to give you that nice flowy effect that watercolor does. But in my case, I'm just going to spritz it. I'm just going to hold it away from everything else. And then you can add more water to it later, and it will help your colors flow. And let's see. So you can see some of when I showed you my other autumn leaves, I did mostly autumn colors. I did a couple green ones because everything hasn't turned yet. And I didn't do any brown because I don't have brown paint. So I think for our purposes, I will let's do orange, because orange is a nice bright color. So you want to get your brush really wet and get that paint sort of flowing there. Get it on your brush. And it comes out kind of light at first, and you might like that effect. That's sort of what watercolor is. It's a very, it tends to come out initially very soft colors, but you can go back in after it dries and add more paint if you like. So that's my orange one. My other orange ones are a little bit darker because I did a couple more coats. So that's up to you how bright and vibrant you want your leaves to be. You might want a little bit more of a soft effect. So that's my orange leaf. And I'm gonna move this sheet of paper and let that one dry. I'm gonna rinse out my brush, and I'm gonna do this leaf. This is a maple leaf. If I paint it red, we could be celebrating the country of Canada, because they have a big red maple leaf on their flag. So again, I just got it wet. Again, you can just do that with a clean brush and clean water. And I'm gonna do this one red because I like red, and that's a good enough reason for me. So if you don't like the streaky sort of soft effect that watercolor gives you, you can always paint these with any other kind of paint. So they'll be more of a solid color. And it would be really fun, I think, if you went outside and took maybe like a little walk and looked at the leaves, and then sort of decided from what you saw, what you observed outside, how to paint your leaves. So you could do like a little nature walk if you wanted to. It's a beautiful time of year to do it before it gets colder. So these are my two leaves that I just painted. Here's my maple, here's my other leaf. And you can see this one's a little bit brighter, this one's a little bit lighter. You can make all your leaves the same color, different colors, whatever you like. So I'm just gonna put these over on my paper over on the side here to dry. You really want to make sure your leaves are nice and dry before you do the next step. So you could paint all your leaves and come back to this the next day or a little while later. And that's important because it will take a little while to dry just because you're using such wet paper and wet paint. So make sure they're very dry. I think I left mine overnight when I did my sample ones. I would say probably a couple of hours. And then you can come back to this video, but I'm gonna press on here. So while my leaves are drying, and I have my other set of leaves here, I'm gonna move my water very far away so I don't get everything wet, so I don't spill it. So this is just a regular paper plate, and you got one of these in your kit, and you are going to want to have a grown-up help you with this part. We want to cut out. You can see that there's like an inner circle and then the edge of the plate, and we want to just cut out this inner circle. So if you wanted to, you could just draw with a pencil, trace it out, and so you know exactly where you're cutting. And then you sort of want to open your scissors carefully, and this actually already has a little tiny cut in it. So you just sort of want to wiggle your scissors through so you can see it coming through the back, and then I'm just gonna start cutting. So you can see my slit, and then I'm gonna cut around the circle, the inner circle. So this is definitely a good job for your grown-up because scissors, if you're an older kiddo and you want to do it yourself, that's fine. Just know that you can always ask for help. I realize I'm holding this up and you can't really see what I'm doing, so it's just going around the circle. There we go. Oops, it's still a little bit attached. There we go. So that was my center of my plate, which I don't need anymore. And here is my wreath ring. So now I want to get ready to glue my leaves on. So I have all my leaves. I'm gonna still leave those to dry, so I probably won't put them on my wreath. So I have this. This is 18. I pre-painted 18, and you, like I said, you have 20 in your kit, so I painted those 2 that were not in mine. And I have my wreath here, my wreath shape. And what I want to do before I glue them out or glue them down is figure out how I want them to go. So I know I want probably my red at the top. Throw a little green, and they can go either way. If you paint the backs of them, then you have more options, but that's up to you. And you may have a few little gaps where you see the paper plate through, and that's okay. If it bothers you, you can do all your leaves very overlapped, or you maybe want to cover your wreath shape with something else. I am okay with the gaps showing through at this point. Let's see. So I am not gluing anything down now. I'm just sort of figuring out how I want this all to look. Get another. And then if you are not gonna finish this right away, you can always take a quick picture of it so you can come back and see what you did. I want another maple leaf. Let's see, maybe like that. And throw So that is, let's see if I can hold it up without them all falling. That's kind of what I'm going with. So I have sort of an idea of how I want the finished product to look. If you just want to glue them on, however, that's also a good method. And like I said, I have a hot glue gun. This is actually a really hot glue gun. If you're going to use hot glue, have a grown-up help you, because it can burn. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a couple dots on the wreath form and press it down, and it dries really fast, which is why I'm using it for this project, for this video. So I just sort of want to lay my leaf down, see where it needs to go, and then a couple dots, and then press it down. So also, grown-ups, if you're using hot glue, be careful. It's really hot. I have had many a hot glue burn. Not a bad burn, but hot glue's heat on my hands before. All right. So I'm just sort of like laying them out and seeing how I want them to be on the wreath, which way I want them to be facing. I think that one will go like that. And like I said, if you didn't get a kit for this, you can always pick up regular autumn leaves and make a wreath out of those. Or you could, those of you who did get a kit, you could do a mix. I mean, there's so many, I always give you so many ideas on top of what I'm doing because I want you to know you can make it however you like and you have plenty of options. So I think that's good for there. And I'm just lifting up these corners so they don't, so it's nice and secure. So while I'm doing this, I want you to think about like what your favorite part of autumn is. Halloween is coming up, so that's always a fun part. I very much like all the changing leaves, and I love acorns. That always makes me think of fall also. Oh, see, I'm gonna maybe run out of a little space here because I didn't put them down exactly how I laid them out before, but that's all right. And with a nice red maple leaf right here. And if you're using hot glue, grown-ups, you gotta work fast because it dries nice and fast. Right, so that's mine. Oops, I think I might be a little bit glued to my paper here. Let's see if I can get that off. There we go. So that's mine. Let's see, I'm gonna tilt the camera back up a little bit. So that is my watercolor autumn wreath. Picking off the little bits of glue, and you can, you know, it looks good anyway. And I have a bunch of leaves left over, so if I wanted to add more, maybe have a few, you know, in towards the center. So if I wanted to fill in anywhere, you know, maybe I could tuck some leaves underneath or have them hanging off, or you could use your leftover leaves for something else, or if you have another paper plate at home, you might have enough leaves to make two if you've got your own paper plate at home. Anyway, lots of things to decide. Like I might feel like I want to cover up, oh, sorry. I feel like maybe I want to cover up that gap a little bit. Or maybe over here. it could really be quite a dense wreath. So if I wanted to go back through. But for now, for my purposes right now, I am going to finish it up, and I'm gonna tie on our yarn. So in your kit you have this orange fuzzy yarn. I just picked it because it's really soft and squishy, and it's orange, which is a very autumn color. So in my instructions I always write about like what kind of knots I'm using, just because it's the only way I know how to describe it, but then I can show it to you. So I'm gonna tie an overhand knot. So I'm gonna show you what it is, because it's something I can undo. So you have your yarn, and what you're gonna do is you're gonna loop this over your wreath, like so, and tie these two ends together. So let me do it up close first, and then I'll untie it and tie it around my wreath. So this is what an overhand knot is. Got your two ends, you put them together, so you basically folded your piece of yarn in half, and you wrap them over your finger, and then you've got a loop, and you put the ends through the loop and pull. So I'll pull it gently, and that's an overhand knot. So I'll do it one more time, and we'll put it on the wreath. So yarn, ends together. I'm gonna move this in a little bit. Ends together over your pointer finger, so it wraps all the way around. Don't wrap it too tight, because you do need to loosen it up again. So now I've pulled it off my finger a little bit. I'm gonna put the ends through that loop that's left over and pull. And that's an overhand knot, and it's really handy in all sorts of, well, I would say all sorts of craft projects, but all sorts of everythings. It's a good one to know. So now that I've showed you how to do that, I don't think where I had my the top like leaf is where I want it to hang. I think I want it to hang like that, because then the yarn can go right in this little sort of V shape that's made by the leaves. So I'm just gonna put my yarn and fold it just like we did before, but now it's on my wreath. And if this is too long, you can always trim it. So over my fingers and through the loop and tie that knot. And now I have my watercolor autumn leaf wreath. Because this is paper, it would probably be best hung indoors. And you can have it up for all of autumn, or if you're like me and you just can't get enough of autumn, you have it up all year. And it's something you can take out again next year. So I hope you guys are doing well. I know a lot of you are back in school in some fashion, and I hope it's going okay. I wanted to give you a couple library announcements. You could even use your wreath as like a fun, photo frame. Just being silly. So I wanted to give you a couple of library announcements. First of all, thank you for joining me for Crafternoon. And a couple library announcements that I want to say are, we had been doing a browsing library outdoors in the tent near the park, in the parking lot near the tennis courts. And we have moved that inside. So it's still happening. It's just, you might drive by and not see it, but it's still happening indoors. So we're calling it the mini library, and it's on the lower level in the Mary room, which is our big meeting room. Currently, you cannot access the upper levels, but we have tons of stuff in that room, and you can still place holds for curbside pickup. So the hours for the mini library are Tuesday, Wednesday, and Saturday from 11 to 4. And then on Thursdays we are open, but we're open until 8. So you need to come by a little bit later and browse. You can do that. So I hope everybody's doing okay, and I would love to see how your autumn wreath turns out. If you want to share it on our Facebook or our Instagram, you can always tag us on Instagram, Duxbury Free Library. And we'll see you next time. Oh, also another quick library note. We are having a pumpkin decorating contest. So you would decorate your pumpkin and then take a very spooky photo of it and then email it to us with your information, and then we're gonna see how awesome they are. And there's more details about that on our website. And the deadline is October, I want to say it's the 29th, could be the 28th, but you can double check that on our website. And if I don't see you in the mini library or around before, have a happy Halloween. Might be a little different, but I'm sure you'll be able to make the best of it. So I hope you enjoyed your Crafternoon, your autumn wreath. Let's see, let me just organize my. And we'll see you soon. Bye, everybody.